right, today we're going to be talking about the NRA, the evolution of where they came from, their history, their origins, why people hate them, where they are today. They've had a rough go at things. Don't get me wrong, I don't feel bad for them at all because it was their own fault. They did that to themselves. But we're going to go over that just so you understand what's going on with the NRA and where they're at. But before we get into that, don't forget to shop at OnlyTacticalFans at Shopify.com. We do have tourniquets there, specifically the Snake Staff tourniquet, which is small enough for EDC and small enough for children and pets. And don't forget the most important tourniquet, the best tourniquet ever made in the whole entire world is the one you actually have on you. And this one's small enough to carry in your pocket, just like that. Military tourniquets, they're a little bit too big. Yeah, the Cat 7 tourniquet's pretty freaking awesome, but yeah, it's too big to carry on you. This does not have that problem. Let's get into it. To the Digital Board of Knowledge. Again, we're covering the NRA evolution. So, what did they go from? They went from a hunting club to ultimately playing catch-up, trying to get caught up with the community of the Second Amendment where it is today, which is ultimately shall not be infringed. The community literally left them behind because they were still stuck in these old ideals, and it was just pretty bad. Now, my lawyer, Matt Larosiere, just got backed by the NRA in a 3D printing case, and we'll talk about why that's significant. Now, this video isn't about that specifically, but that does play a huge role in signaling where they are today and what they're doing today, and why. Sorry, what is the history of the NRA? They were founded in 1871. That's a long freaking time ago, back in New York. Some Civil War vets wanted better marksmanship, and they wanted the organization to be more focused around like hunting, safety, training, sport shooting club. Not at all a lobbyist group, not at all, shall not be infringed. This was a sport shooting club. And remember, this is before 1934, so there was no gun laws for them to really oppose. So the whole principle, like what their foundation is built on, what they made this organization about, had nothing to do with gun laws. It was about shooting. Again, marksmanship, hunting, safety, recreation, training. That all changed in 1977. In 1977, we have the 1977 NRA Revolt. So this went on, it was a fight on the floor. It went on till like 4 a.m. A bunch of dudes wearing orange hats and stuff, and they were like, dude, we want no compromise. We have this powerful organization here. It's built around hunting. You guys are letting them take away our hunting by compromising constantly. You compromised in 1934. You compromised in 1968. We want a line drawn right here. No more compromises. We just keep giving up more and more rights. It's getting harder and harder to deer hunt. It's getting harder and harder to sport shoot. Stop. No more compromise. Don't give any more. And that's when they turned into more of a lobbyist group. So what really changed in 1977? They went more politically more politically, they switched, why can't I spit it out? More of a political lobbyist group and less about hunting. Still though, they were okay with compromising. They were not, shall not be infringed. They were, we need to protect hunting at all costs because that's what our members wanted. They weren't there like, hey, we want to protect these guns to stop a tyrannical government. They were like, hey, we want to protect these guns because this is what I hunt with. And that's where the NRA targeted their stuff. Now, what does their track record look like? Well, not very good because they made a whole bunch of compromises, which might have been okay in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, but things have changed. We're not okay with that anymore. A couple of the compromises we're talking about here is the 1986 FOPA, or the Hughes Amendment. That was the ban on machine guns. That's when they decided that, oh, you know what, we're going to close the registry. You can no longer enter a machine gun into the public registry. Or I should say, not the public registry, the NFA. Now, FOPA itself, the Firearms Owners Protection Act, wasn't bad. It basically pulled back on a bunch of tactics the ATF could use, allowed you to travel through states as long as your guns were cased without a problem, but then they snuck in the machine gun ban. Did the NRA oppose it? No, because, oh yeah, I think this is their mindset. This is literally where things were back then. We're going to give you machine guns because You can't use machine guns for hunting anyway. And you give us FOPA because when we're carrying our hunting rifles to Colorado and stuff like that, we don't want to have to worry about passing through a state and get caught up on something. You see the whole compromise mindset behind them? Yeah, it was pretty bad. So they let them have machine guns to be able to do the other stuff that FOPA gave us. Then you had the 1994 assault weapons ban. Yeah, they opposed it, but it was like, well, it doesn't really affect hunting, but you know what, we don't like it because it's focused around semi-automatics, and semi-automatics are pretty useful in hunting. I mean, we're out there right now with the M1 Garand and that. Everything's going good. I don't understand why you're going against the assault weapons ban. Now, don't get me wrong, the M1 Garand does fall within the assault weapons ban. SKS is all of our basically semi-automatic hunting rifles, so you know what? You can have that one, but on the record, we oppose it. And then, this was the breaking point. This is what broke the NRA's back. They are still trying to recover from this, and that was the bump stock ban. Why did that matter? Not so much because of the bump stock, but because of where we were as a Second Amendment community. Remember, in 2017, we have one hell of a presence on YouTube. At that point in time, I was telling my dad, I'm like, Dad, we're going to win this Second Amendment fight unless they can remove our voice from YouTube because the education is flowing so fast and we're just erasing Fudd lore constantly and training people like, hey, this is the Second Amendment. This is what it means. This is what's been taken away from you and your parents, and you need to fight, and this is what's going on right now, and just the education behind it. I'm like, Dad, we won the Second Amendment fight. I'm like, mark my words, by time I die, the NFA will be gone. I'm like, right now what's probably going to go first is silencers because that's more of an acceptable thing because it has hunting purposes. I'm like, we need to get a bunch of silencers at the store because they will sell. And we did. Unfortunately, when the ATF came after me, it kind of spooked them a little bit, so they got rid of the silencers, which I bet you wish they would have kept them now because, yeah, a whole bunch of people would have bought them because I was right. Anyway, so that was the big deal with 2017 is they supported the bump stock ban. I forget the language, but it's something like, no, the general public shouldn't have something that can convert a firearm to a machine gun. Yeah, we know the definition of a machine gun. That's not a bump stock. Number two, it doesn't, I'm trying not to curse here, it doesn't matter if it can convert a firearm to a machine gun or not. Where in the Second Amendment does it say shall not be infringed except for machine guns? Is it invisible ink? Is it really small? Is it like one of those things where you like zoom in on the dollar and the border is actually a bunch of words? Because I've looked at the Second Amendment several times. I don't see it anywhere. So, the Second Amendment says I can have machine guns. Why are you opposing that? You're supposed to be the heavy hitter, the lobby group. When I shop at Midway USA, I click send my change to the NRA. I'm doing that because you're supposed to be fighting for me. And you're just going to give them the bump stocks? And this is how the general public felt about that. So it freaking broke their back. And then you had the Wayne LaPierre fallout. So basically in 2020 to 2024, it was that he was misusing funds. Yeah, that really sucks because we're seeing the owners and owner-operators is the right word, the president of our lobbyist groups taking all these cruises, buying all these luxury items, when that money could have been spent on fighting things like, I don't know, maybe the bump stock ban. There's 100 legal cases, dudes going to prison for exercising their Second Amendment right, and you'd rather buy a yacht than try to help them out? That was a problem. So that also made a big problem. All right, so their membership dues, they went from 61.8 million down to 51.7 million in 2023. That's bad. They lost $10 million in dues. In 2024, they're at a 16-year low. The peak of their organization was in 2018. Why, you may ask, why is 2018 important? Oh, well, that's right around the bump stock ban time. That's right around where they compromised our rights again. And the NRA wasn't the only the corporation out there now. Now you have other corporations like the Firearms Protection, I can't remember their initials, the GOA. They're all like, well, hey, you know what? These guys are compromising your rights. Why don't you give your money to us, and we will take a no-compromise stance. Here's the line in the sand. You shall not move any farther past this line. And we're like, yeah, they've proved themselves. They just compromised on the bump stock ban. We're going to start shifting our funding and sending our money over to someone that will represent us the way we want to be represented. So their whole wishy-washy compromise, blah, 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 that era ended. in 2017. And obviously it made sense because they peaked off in 2018 and now everything started flipping. Now what they're trying to do is play catch up. Why is the NRA trying to play catch up? Because they're still a powerful they're still a powerful lobbying group that are completely connected. Honestly, they are a very, very useful tool to us. It was like trying to take a flathead screwdriver and trying to put in a Phillips screw before. They were the flathead screwdriver. They did not align with our morals, with our values. Now they're converting more to a Phillips head driver so we can do the job we're trying to do. So post YouTube, the modernization of what we believe our gun rights should be, yeah, compromise, so we're not going to totally fight for the Second Amendment. We're going to give a little bit of ground because you got to give a little ground to get a little ground. That was the idea back then. After YouTube, now we got like the Fuddbusters, the CRS firearms, the whole shall not be infringed, no exceptions. There's no reason whatsoever why I should have to give up any of my rights. My rights don't end where your safety begins. Yes, firearms are dangerous, but you know what? They're protected in the Constitution, and they're protected for a reason. They are what secures a free state. They give us our freedom. We got the First Amendment, which is backed up by the Second Amendment. That allows the people the power to manipulate and change the government how they see fit. So, what do we got here? Now we got the shift. Now, this is really evident in the Matt Larosiere case. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically a 3D printing case. California is trying to sue him over having a website that has 3D printing files on it. Yes, he doesn't live in California. He didn't send any of the files to California, but because they existed, and you know what gets crazier? They existed before their law, so they're ex post facto going after him. Now, the NRA has actually picked this up. What does this mean? Does 3D printing have anything to do with hunting? Anything at all? Does it have anything to do with compromise? Not at all. This is strictly Second Amendment and First Amendment. That's where we want them to be. That's the kind of case they're going after now, and that's signaling like, hey guys, we get it. Okay, you know what? Hunting's cool, but you guys don't really give a shit about that. I mean, you do, but first comes your rights. First comes the defense of our country. Second comes hunting. Hunting is an afterthought because the Founding Fathers weren't like, oh, let's write the Second Amendment because I enjoy deer hunting. No, they wrote the Second Amendment because they just got into a fight with the British, and one of the things the British tried to do was take away their firearms, and you know what? If we can all have firearms, we cannot be conquered. We cannot have a tyrannical government. We cannot have an enemy, foreign or domestic, take us over if the entire populace has the will and the ability to be armed to whatever standard they want at whatever time they want. So that was a huge signal. So what are my final thoughts right now? The NRA, yeah, it helped build the 2A movement, but they weren't representative to the 2A movement in 2015. Yeah, that might have been representative to the 2A movement in 1977. Again, in 1977, we have our backs against the wall. The Commerce Clause was expanded to a point to where it could literally be applied to this. Just this morale patch sitting right here on my desk gets intercepted by federal commerce. It was made in the house. It never leaves the house. It's my personal property. But you know what? Apparently that's commerce. And that's what it pushed us all the way against the wall. So you know what? Maybe they were useful back then. Maybe the compromise was necessary, but it's not necessary today. The problem is they took too long and they took too heavy of compromises, too many compromises that pushed everybody away from them. They should have switched prior to 2018 and came more of a no compromise thing, but they were just disconnected from reality. They weren't watching YouTube. They weren't watching the writing on the wall. Instead, they were taking cruises and stuff, and they were just hitting the same old copy and paste. We'll give a little bit to get a little bit. Give a little bit to get a little bit. Yeah, that was gone. They missed the boat. So they're definitely trying to play catch up, and they're trying to make up a bunch of ground. Right now, the community leaves heavily on shall not be infringed, no excuses. And you can even see it in my comment section. If you looked at my comment sections 2015, they were like sporting purposes and a modern sporting rifle and sporting this and sporting that. And you know what? You look at my comment sections now, it's like, shall not be infringed. I want my machine gun. It's my God-given right, guaranteed to me by the Constitution. What's going on? Let's get this done. Come on, guys. Get your shit together. Totally different compromise. Totally different section. I used to get yelled at in my comment section. So I talk about an AR-15 as a weapon, or mainly just when I call it a weapon, I'm like, oh, you know, this weapon's pretty good. It's got controls that are nice, and I'm just making stuff up at this point. But the point is, I'd call it a weapon. My comment section would explode with, oh, that's a modern sporting rifle. Don't call it anything else because we don't want to lose that. And if you call it a weapon, it'll be classified as an assault weapon and they're going to take it away from us. Today, somebody uses modern sporting rifle in the comment section. There's like 50 people just jumping on them being like, you FUD retard. Like, no compromise. It doesn't matter what it's called because you know what? It's protected. So, how do I feel that they can reattach themselves to reality, bring themselves into the mix, and start being a very useful agency again? I believe it happens on small-scale battles. Right now, a lot of even the GOA, they're focused on like big publicity, like federal lawsuits, stuff like that, because that's what draws the members, that's what brings people in, but it can be done on a micro level, I believe. And that is, find the cases. The appellate court is the best place to find these cases because 97% of people are going to plea out anyway. So if they've hit the appellate level, you know that they're not going to plea out. Yes, you can cherry pick some of the cases in district court, but appellate level is a safe way to do it. You find the cases that are strictly about a gun law being violated. Nothing else. No other crimes, no dead hookers in the trunk, no drugs, nothing like that. It's strictly a gun. Dude got caught with a machine gun, or a silencer, or a machine gun conversion device. He fought it, he's at the appellate level now, boom, now the NRA should come in, be like, hey man, like, it sucks you lost at district court. Yeah, the law is unconstitutional, we have our lawyers here, we're here to fight for you. The agreement is, we're going to talk about it on our YouTube page, we're going to talk about your case, we're going to promote your case, we're going to tell everybody we're fighting for you because that's how we draw members in, and like it or not, this is still a business. Yeah, we are here to fight for your Second Amendment right, but it's still a business. We still have to show a net income. And that's how we're going to do it. So sign right here on the dotted line. We'll pick your case up. But again, we get to promote your case. And yeah, everybody that's at the appellate court level is going to be like, yeah, definitely do that. And it brings media attention to the case. Other gun groups, again, they take the higher profile cases. That's what the NRA used to do and still does right now. But it can be done on a micro level. Look at my channel. Like, it blew up because I took on a bunch of the cases where guys were just being assaulted by the government unfairly, and I'm like, hey, let's get them a fundraiser going. This is what's going on in the store. This is what's going on with the story, guys. Check it out. We need to help this guy out. It blew this channel up. That's like the backbone of it. It can be done on a micro level, and I think it would be very smart for the NRA to do that because it'll separate them from the other groups. Yeah, the other groups are taking on these big cases and that, but a lot of times, that don't matter to me. That don't matter to you. What matters is when you're sitting in front of the appellate judges, hey, you guys violated my Second Amendment right all by yourself. That's the cases I think they should take up. That's the cases I think they should promote and ultimately build their backbone because it's something that the other firearms agencies that aren't doing. Start filing amnesty briefs, just get their fingers in as many of those cases as possible and help them move it up through the courts to get to the Supreme Court, but give them a good enough representation that when it gets to the Supreme Court, they have good facts. Now, it's a little bit weird. Ideally, you'd want to represent the case at the district level, but again, 97% of people are going to plea out. So how do you weed those out? My best solution right now is just pick from the appellates. Now, the facts are established in the district court, and you can't add any new facts on, but how it gets litigated in that, you can affect from the district court, or the appellate court. Anyways, guys, do not forget to shop at Only Tactical Fans at Shopify.com. That is how I support everything. Again, they did a hit piece article on me. Killed all my revenue streams except for that one. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel but you don't want to spend any money, totally okay. The next best way to do this, click on that Amazon affiliate link. Just by clicking on that link, even if you don't buy what that link is for, just clicking on it. And doing the Amazon shopping you were already going to do anyway, I got a little kickback for it because you came there off my channel. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.